Hello, and thank you for clicking on this video today. My name is Harry Glynn Jones, and I am a contributing editor over at the Gamer Social Club website. Today, I am bringing you an interview I did with Kevin Andersson, the solo developer of the new 3D platformer PaperKlay. We talked about a range of topics, from his time at Zoink Games to his transition to becoming a solo developer, as well as some of the cool dreams he's been able to achieve already whilst working on PaperKlay. I hope you enjoy. And hello again then, Kevin, and thank you so much for joining me today to chat. I've been really looking forward to this one.
Same. It'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, look, I obviously know a bit about you already, but let's get you talking about yourself a bit just so that people can get to know you as well, and a bit about your sort of path to where we are today. Let's hear all about it.
All from the beginning? Yeah, no. Yeah, so my name is Kevin. I've been making games for like commercially. I've been working on commercial games for over 10 years. I think we're on year 11 soon. I don't know. I don't keep full track, but yeah, I've been working on games for a long time now as a level designer, producer. Started my career at a studio called Zoink and co-founded a studio with friends outside of work called Edan Pixels, where we did pixel games. and then worked in a few places here and there, try to work on cool games as well as my own, which in some people's eyes can be called cool games. I wouldn't go that far, but yes, I've been around a few places, know a few people here and there. Yeah, making games.
Brilliant. Sounds like the dream.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, it is.
Good stuff. Well, so yeah, let's get into some of that stuff, obviously, because as I said to you before, I was familiar with your work at Zoink Games. That's where I think I probably would have crossed paths with you first, more than likely. With was it a Stick It to the Man? Was that the first one that you guys did, or am I?
So Zoink did a lot of games before I joined, and before Stick to the Man as well. They did a lot of commercial, like how do you say? I was about to say commercial games, like working for like I don't probably wasn't exactly McDonald's or so, but like they made smaller games for other people. So Stick It to Man was one of their bigger first games, and I joined when they did a port. So they had already finished Stick It to the Man, and they were working on Zombie Vikings when I joined as a level designer.
Yes, yeah, and I played that as well, and
You did?
I actually then introduced that to my kids because I still have it on my Xbox, of course.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
Oh,
obviously they love it.
you played it on the Xbox.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's so funny because like when I joined, I was a level designer, and so I worked on it, had a lot of fun, learned a ton, the best people, and then so we finished the game. And then it was this moment where like the producer was leaving the company, and I was like, I'm a level designer. Flipping Death, which was the game coming up next, was like, do we need a level designer fully for that? I don't know. So the survival instinct was like, maybe I should be the producer. So in the end, it was like the current producer leaving, the CEO and me all thought of me as taking over as producer. So it wasn't very hard to convince everybody. That job landed in my lap. And my first task was like take over and make sure the ports of Zombie Vikings went through. So I remember some struggling with the Xbox version. So glad to hear that somebody played it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, I remember having a great time with it myself. I've always been a big fan of those sort of side-scrolling beat-em-ups and stuff from, the heyday of playing, like, Turtles in Time and stuff like that. And then they've kind of been rekindled by things like Castle Crashers.
Oh,
Yeah,
so many good games.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And then of course, Zombie Vikings again just taps into that. And it brought with it that I don't know if that was something that was necessarily unique to Zoink at that time because of the people who were obviously working there, or if that was more of a just sort of this is the energy that Zoink as a studio has always had, which was the humor and the character designs and things like that. There is very much a kind of absurdist kind of feel to everything.
Yeah.
It's not quite straying into silly almost because everything is still quite the topic matter is so often quite serious, like it's
Yeah.
relationships and arguments and vendettas and things like that, and yet it's
Yeah.
all being handled in this way, which feels very kind of like if I, if someone slipped something into my drink that's making me, see everything in these weird colors and shapes and stuff like that, and everyone's sort of holding a fish when they're not, or whatever it might be. It's a very kind of peculiar world that you guys.
Yeah, and like a big reason for like the games keeping like Stick It to the Man, Zombie Vikings, Flipping Death, all keeping within the same like feeling or vein in terms of like designing characters and story and like how in a good way weird it is. It is thanks to Klaus, the CEO, who was the like creative director. It was his mind, and also a guy named Andreas was the art director. Those two would go into like a room, and you could like when you walk past, you would see them waving their hands and like trying to come up with a story. It was the best. And like there were moments where you're like, you said a dumb idea, and they're like, "Hey, you come in here," and you had like 10 minutes of fame where you're like, "Here's some dumb ideas," and they're like, "I like that," and they kept going. So that like learning about writing the script in that process was amazing, and they sketched so much. That was really interesting to like see and learn and experience how they like came up with these ideas, and they weren't afraid to go in weird directions. In the end, you're like, yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
That's it. I
that
think,
was
yeah.
something.
When you've got a wacky idea, as long as you see it through with conviction,
Yeah,
most people will get on board with it because they get the feeling. It's like going to the cinema or like that, and pretending that you're not sitting with dozens of people around you whilst you're watching this big thing on a screen. You're like, no, 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 I'm there because everyone's so anxious and serious about this. Like
yeah,
this must be real in
yeah,
that way. And as you say, it doesn't matter kind of how crazy it gets, as long as you do it at 110%, then everyone
yeah.
will be like, yeah, no, this is fine.
Exactly. And I must say that since I wasn't a part during the development of Stick to Man, which in my eyes was the first that like Zoink vein in that era, I guess. I don't know if there were any pushbacks internally of like this is too weird. But like during Zombie Vikings, it felt like everybody was like, yeah, makes sense. Of course they're gonna have a fish there and do this and like, yeah, makes sense. And then during Flip and Death, it was like, yeah, we got this.
It's sort of expected that it is, as you said, it's the Zoink kind of thing,
Yeah,
the Zoink
it was
verse,
the
something like that.
like now years later,
Yeah.
I look back at it with fond memories of like this was fun chaos. In the moment when you're like, we have this amount of month time left, you can't be playing around with the story. I remember, I think it was like 3 last levels. I was like, you are not allowed to introduce any new mechanic. We don't have time.
Yeah.
Here are the mechanics. You get a golden star. And Klaus was like, okay.
Yep, that's fine.
That was fun.
Yeah, yeah. So, and obviously, it's been a bit of time since you were at
Yeah.
Zoink Games with everybody, and I'm sure no doubt keep in touch with some of them. But like, you then obviously moved on from there, and you're now working as a solo developer.
Yes.
Teaming up with others, obviously, no doubt. I know we know of a couple. Obviously, we've seen you, share some of the people you've been able to kind of collab with, as it were,
True.
and that's quite exciting. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I wanted to obviously talk, as I have done with other people, about the transition from working as part of a team and on maybe sometimes larger projects, with
Yeah.
larger budgets, and as you said, if you're speaking with the publishers and stuff like that, there's other parties, whole entities involved in this.
Yeah.
How have you experienced that transition, as it were?
So to go back a little bit, like I was at Zoink for 4 years, and during those 4 years, almost right away, I think it was like 1 or 2 months in, I started a project with one coworker at Zoink and 2 guys outside of Zoink. We were 4 people making a 2D pixel Metroidvania game called Alva's Awakening. And after 4 years at
I've
Zoink,
played that as well. Sorry, I've played that as well. I
oh,
just
you
didn't
did?
realize. I didn't realize. I'm sorry.
Whoa, this is crazy. Wait, not for research, just like by chance.
Yeah. You make games I like to play, apparently. What can I say?
Wow. Okay. Okay. This is fun. Yeah. During those 4 years while we worked at Zoink, we worked on Alva's Awakening. We released it, and then it took a year to just like take in the feedback, hear about things, and then after a year, we were like, let's quit our jobs because that's a great idea and do our own company full time. So we were 4 people doing a sequel, and then we also ported the game to the Switch. Um, so we did that and started working on the sequel and so on. And then eventually I was like, I want to do dumb ideas. I want to do weird games. And I was like, I'm out, guys. We had a replacement, so it was fine. I didn't leave them in the dirt. It was a programmer. It was an intern that we then hired, and he
On the
stayed.
road, it's like waiting for someone to give you a lift.
Yeah, no, he stayed. He stayed for like 5 more years after I left. So it's all good. No, I left Elden Pixels. So I was like, okay, because I wanted to like do my own weird small games because I do have experience in like I worked as a programmer, by the way, on Alva's Awakening, not a level designer. So by day during Zoink, sorry, it's a little bit messy. During the day at Zoink, I was a level designer, and then I became the producer, and then in the evening I was a programmer at Elden Pixels, and so programmed entire games and so on. And I had some experience of art and so on. Not the best. I was like, maybe I can do music as well. I couldn't. But I learned my limit, and I
Yeah.
tried it. So as I left Elden Pixels, I'm like, let's do my own thing. Let's start my own company, WhyKev, which was I named it WhyKev because my name is Kevin, and why because this is why I want to make games. What kind of games I want to make. This is
Exactly.
why I'm making them. Having fun, doing weird things. And
It
so,
begs the question, like, why Kev? And then you'd be like, well,
yeah,
let me explain to you why you
I
should stick
ask
with me.
myself that every day. Why do you keep making games? Sadly, I'm still making games. No,
It's worked so far. Why not? Why not?
seems like it. Yeah, on the surface.
Yeah.
No, but so where was I going with this? Yeah, no. So I've been making so right, the team and everything. So, and I was like, so I worked in bigger projects at Zoink, talking with publishers there, figuring out budget and so on. Elden Pixel, smaller budget,
Mhm.
no publisher, and figuring out all those things and work like as a producer at Zoink and then programmer at Elden Pixels, the back end of the storefronts and so on and everything, uploading a game to Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and all these things. I knew these things and the process I went through going with publishers and so on, or like the things that publishers usually do, like translating your game, getting it rated, and all these things, reaching out to how do you say content creators and so on. I knew all of these processes, as I was like, I can do it on my own and these things. I didn't want publishers from my early games. Not that I fully searched out for them, but now with PaperKlay, it was a whole different story in terms of tension. But I'm sure we'll get to that point soon.
Absolutely. So that's interesting. Then you were obviously working on these two, with as part of these two different teams at the same time, as well as you said, by day and by night. And I
Yeah.
guess in some respect, then the opportunity to work as a smaller independent team like that kind of meant you had that experience then before then making the full transition to solo dev.
Yeah.
So there was that kind of moment where, like most people suggest when trying to get into game development in the first place, keep your day job. If it happens to also
Mm.
be game development, great. But
Yeah.
if you can, yeah, keep your day job and then do the other thing, and
Exactly.
allow that to be somewhere where you can then learn with a safety net under you, so you're not entirely, out on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
a huge thing that I feel like a lot of people are doing. I don't want to say wrong, but like they're missing. hmm, I've learned these things through experience. Like having money is nice. And people know that. But like the being able to take off the economical pressure of your game, like the one that you're like so passionate about, like releasing that and seeing it flop, that hurts. and knowing that you don't get money hurts even more. So they're like double the pain. I had that with my game called Hop Legs. It didn't do too well, and then I was like, okay, money. So like I know from experience and like in the past as well, but something that I learned when I was at Zoink was that we did contract work there as well from time to time to get a little bit extra money. And we didn't do any contract work at Elden Pixels. We only focused on our own projects, which from time to time you had to eat from your savings, and that was a little bit stressful because eventually you're like, hey, aren't we getting money soon? Because like you're burning through your savings. You're like, I like noodles, but not every day. And yeah. So that is when I eventually went, like when I founded WhyKev, the first 2 years I had a day job. I didn't do my own company full time. And when I decided to do it full time, I did it because I got like a freelance gig. People reached out, were like, "Hey, can you help us?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess, yeah."
Yeah.
And then by accident, I didn't seek out to be a contractor or freelancer or whatever you want to call it. I think if you say you're a contractor, it sounds like you're making more money. So
It sounds
that's what
fancier. Yeah, yeah.
a friend
Absolutely.
told me that. I'm like, sure, okay, I don't care.
The
But yeah,
freelance
so
is
my
more
first
adventurous.
gig, yeah. It was my first gig was like a 1 year contract. I was like, that seems safe. And the money, I was like, this seems nice.
Mm, mm.
Spent it all on on stuff, dumb things,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
not
yeah.
dumb things, but
But that's the frivolous nature of money, isn't it? Unfortunately, it comes and goes so quickly at the time when
yeah,
you get it. Normally, it doesn't come in slowly and go out slowly. It's a spike and then a big drop.
exactly. I feel like I've learned everything in life by mistakes, and I've done a lot of them. I will keep making more, hopefully, not the ones that I've made in the past. So I'm a little bit more frugal with my money now. And
There's some
yeah,
elements of that, definitely, absolutely. But yeah, you only learn through making mistakes. I think that's also how often some of the best sort of successes come about is through a mistake in the first place.
yeah,
there are games that in the past and in the future I'm looking forward to. I look at and think, surely that could have only have come about because something went wrong in the development
yeah,
process, and someone just went, hang on, wait, no, leave that in there. That's really good.
yeah,
It doesn't seem right now, but trust me, like when we get to the end of the game it'll be worthwhile keeping that silly gimmick in there or
yeah,
this crazy glitch that can happen. You
yeah.
know, whatever it might be. These things can lead to.
We had that in Alva's Awakening. We had a
Oh yeah.
Yep, where you could like in this 2D pixel Metrovania, you could had three magics that you could like
Hmm.
create a box or a block or a bubble or a lightning bolt. There was this glitch where you could jump, create a block, and just like force yourself onto it with the collision, like half onto it. You could jump away from it.
I
And we
totally.
found that early, and we were like, let's just be patient, sit down in boat, and that ended up being like the speedrun strategy, which ended us up on one of the games done quick. I don't know if the summer or winter one.
Fantastic.
We
That's the
ended up
thing.
there.
Yeah, these things can, yeah, they can spawn all sorts of crazy ventures and things like that. Whether it's suddenly becoming like a speedrunner's favorite game to try and beat because you've got these little things that they can really take advantage of and be like, oh, I found
Yeah,
this, and even though you're sitting back to be like, that's it, dance in your
yeah,
mind
yeah.
because you knew it was
As
there.
long as it doesn't just disturb like the casual playthrough, I feel like
Exactly. Yeah,
that's
that's it. That's when it strays over into being a problem. It's an issue at
yeah,
that point. Yeah,
exactly.
definitely. Um, yeah. So okay. So in that time, then obviously you had a decent amount, an opportunity to learn about what it'd be like to be independent and things like that.
Yeah.
And then you went through the sort of contracting phase and this freelancing, as it were.
Mhm.
Um, what was it then that kind of got you wanting to make PaperKlay? I guess the first game, that is under WhyKev, as it were. Oh no, sorry, Hoppy Legs is the first game from WhyKev, I guess.
No, Tani Nani, which is a 2D pixel
Oh,
puzzle game,
oh,
and
okay.
then Hop Legs. And technically, there's a smaller game called Hacker. But yeah, so technically, PaperKlay will be the fourth
Fourth.
game that my
Oh,
game
I was
releases.
way off.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like, I'm really bad at talking about my old games. But yeah, so PaperKlay is obviously the bigger and important one right now. Uh,
And
how
sorry,
I
yeah, sorry, yeah, yeah. I'm interested to know that because obviously, if it's the fourth one, then there is still a little bit of a timeline there. So I'm interested to know what led to the inevitable. You being inspired. I know, and we'll talk about what is inspiring the game, as it were. But what was it? What was the moment for you to suddenly go, I want to make this sort of
yeah,
game?
yeah.
Because Hobby Legs doesn't sound like it was probably anything like this. Hours of Waking obviously wasn't. I'm assuming Hacker is not, and Nanny
No,
was it you said? Again, none of them are probably anything like it, I'm imagining, but
no.
could be wrong.
The funny thing is, like, they're different games. Like, all my games are different. Like, Elden Pixels, the goal was like 2D pixel platformers.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mhm.
Tani Nani is a 2D pixel puzzle game. It's chill. Hop Legs is a 2D hand drawn rage game, like getting over it with Bennett Foddy, but
Oh,
you're a
right.
box
Yeah.
with
Okay.
legs. And then Hacker is that arcade pixel digging game where you dig down, sort of like Downwell, but you need to dig.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So
So,
like
yeah.
that again, WhyKev is like I don't want to make the same game all the time. I said in the past, now come to PaperKlay. I'm like, I love this. But anyway, so like the first was a pixel game, had issues with scaling. I was like, I'm not making a pixel game again. So Half Legs was hand drawn, and it spawned from a tweet that went viral because I live streamed the development of my games. Been bad during 2024 for reasons, but generally I live streamed the development, and I had one of those like dumb ideas club where it's like a stream is 4 hours. Let's make a prototype in 4 hours, gameplay prototype, post it, see what people think. And there was this like you were a box with legs jumping out based on the colored buttons on your controller on an
Mhm.
Xbox controller ABYX
Yeah.
controlled a leg from each side of the box and could jump around, and that tweet did good. And I was like, I like the attention. Let's keep playing around with this. I kept playing around, and that was fun. And I was like, let's make a game out of this. And so that came out of that one. And then eventually, after I made a few games, I was like, I did learn 3D back in school, like into I think it's called upper secondary school, where you're like 16 to 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know 3D, and I kind of want to try to get back into it. Like, I'm a little bit rusty. Let me get into it. So I was like, let's just freshen up my skills, and I did an ugly knight with an awful running animation. And I was like, still got it. And so I was like, let's make an animal because animals are cuter than knights. I think at least the animals that I try to make. So I made a chicken with a backpack, and I made him run, and I posted it online. And just like the hop legs gif, the post that I did, it got attention, but it got more attention, and people were like, "I will protect this chicken." And I was like, "Hmm, okay, let's just like the purpose was to get better and more comfortable in making 3D. That was the main. There was never going to be a game, and people were like, "Oh, I love this chicken. I will protect it. Oh my god, blah blah blah." And I was like, "I like the attention, so let's keep going. Let's because it's not going to be a game. Let's try to figure out how to make a character controller with my own physics. Not generally I use Unity, the game engine.
Mm.
And I was like, what if I just make my own physics and like collision? Because it's a dumb idea to write everything on your own because you can use what they have to ease some of the pain. And I was like, because it's not going to be a game. It's not going to be a real game.
Just keep telling yourself
I played, so I played around with it, learned a ton. I was like, this is fun. And I made a character like you can run, you can control it. And I was like, let's just make this character feel amazing. So I spent 3 weeks playing around with it and then put out a demo. It's still available. I think I call it Chicken Game or something. It's something I did for 3 weeks. And then people played it and they were like, we really like this. My friends were like competing. I put in a timer and I was like, okay, I had fun. But the purpose was to get better at making 3D, learn that. So I was like, well, what if I just make 3D for this thing, this character controller that I did? And then I like looked back at like my time at Zoink, and I was like, I do like the visuals of like the cardboard and paper and all these things. Then I looked at other games. Like here's the thing, when I moved to Gothenburg, the city where Zoink was at, I like that is 3 hours away from where I grew up, and I didn't have any friends there. Obviously, I made friends at work, but I was like, when I moved there, I was alone. So I had a PS Vita, and I had Tearaway, a small game on that console.
That's
Loved it.
yeah, brilliant at the game. Love that.
And I was like, the Zoink games on Tearaway, okay, Sackboy, all these things for inspiration. I'm like, let's just try, figure it out. So I did an art test. So on week 5, I spent 2 weeks playing around with art. And then on week 5, I posted it online. I was like, little art test. And that blew up as well. And that's when, like, right away, publishers were like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? And I was like, whoa. I have never gotten this attention before. I promise you, the first week after the art test was like 5 publishers reaching out in various sizes, obviously. And they were like, a friend that was like investor, he was like, what are you doing over there? I'm like, I don't know. The publishers were like, what kind of game are you making? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like linear levels or if it's an open world. I have no idea. They're like, pitch it to us and like money. And I was like, wait. So yeah, that's like the start of PaperKlay, and I was like, maybe I should just like explore this because the attention that I'm getting is unlike anything that I've experienced before,
Mm.
at least on the games where I've been doing most of the work. So I was like,
That's really
yeah,
interesting. I think the fact that you were saying that the level of interest that you seem to get with PaperKlay showing off, well, essentially was obviously the mascot, for your sort of
yeah,
mascot platformer that you didn't know existed yet, sort of thing. Um, Showing off these little snippets to people, showing the character, showing the movement,
yeah,
uh, slowly, bit by bit, I imagine you were tapping into something that for a lot of people from certain generations, in particular, our generation and maybe a
mhm,
bit before, people who grew up with a lot of 3D platformers, a lot of games that had a big thing for collectathons, exploring environments, all this sort of stuff. Everyone already knows where we're going, of course, but it is something I think which is very interesting to know that it was also within the industry as well. Like the actual, like as you said, the publishers themselves were no doubt people who were probably again either really tapped into like the fact that like, oh no, we're reaching an age range now where these people are going to be nostalgic for this stuff. Let's do
yeah,
it. More than likely, it was our peers going, oh man, this guy's making a game that is like the games I used to play. We haven't had to have one of those in decades practically. Let's
yeah,
let's get this off the ground. And it's something that I've noticed. It certainly isn't because of last year with things like Astrobot, but I think Astrobot is something that's really good for 3D platformers in that respect, where it's come at the right time when there's
yeah,
about to be, I think, quite a few more appear on the scene, and I think we're going to see a sort of resurgence of the genre. PaperKlay
yeah.
being on the sort of the front end of that, which is great. There's a
Let's
couple
hope.
others. One of the others, I don't know if you've seen Ruffy and the Riverside.
Yeah. We talk. We talk.
Yeah, the guys at Socrates Labs. I reached out to them and they answered a couple of questions for me. They were very cool,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
looking forward to when they drop a demo for that because that again, just like PaperKlay, immediately I looked at that and was like, oh well, I these are the guys I grew up playing games with. These were my
yeah,
friends in my room, playing Banjo Kazooie, Mario 64, a little
yeah,
bit of Jack and Daxter, a little bit of
yeah.
Ratchet and Clank, maybe a bit of Croc or something for fun. Who
That was
knows?
more my era growing up because my neighbor had a PlayStation, so I went over there and we played those games.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, like my friends and I, we started with the N64 and stuff, but then
yeah,
graduated very quickly to PlayStation One when we saw obviously originally Crash Bandicoot and then
yeah.
Spyro. Spyro was a
That was a good
big,
one.
yeah, that was a big eye opener for me,
Mm,
having been a banjo kid and being like,
yeah.
oh, who's going to make the next thing like this? And then Spyro comes out, I'm like, oh,
Mm,
this is great, like this is really getting into the stuff I love. So you know, getting back to talking about PaperKlay and things like that, did you did you think that you were then going to be making a game exactly like one of those sorts of games? Is that something where is that where like your own inspiration became like, oh no, actually, I'm just going to now use them as a point of reference as opposed to I've suddenly decided to sit down play banjo. Oh, that's what my game should be. Was it
Mm.
more actually that you kind of came to them secondary as opposed to the actual primary source of inspiration?
That's a great question, and it is. I wouldn't say that it's blurry, but like here's the thing: I didn't for a good while. I didn't fully know what kind of game I was making. I was figuring it out. I think that's the proper way of phrasing it. Because like sometimes when you start a game, you're like, oh, I'm gonna make a Metrovania. And you're like, yep, I know what I'm doing. I had no idea. All I knew after I did my art test, the next step was like, what kind of character is this? Because obviously I love Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, and Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and like those four games were like, mwah, that was the love. And I was like, the duos, the back and forth between characters. So that's when I started exploring. Okay, this character needs a sidekick, a friend. So the white chicken is called Chick, and the yellow little one is called Nugget. And Nugget wasn't there in the beginning. So early on, I was like figuring out. I was doing art tests to figure out what can I do? Like what kind of levels can I make? What am I capable of making art wise? Because I was still learning these things. So I made a snow area, a beach, and so on, played around with that as I was figuring out who are these characters? What are their that was my focus in the beginning. What are their dynamic and like inspiration types of characters? And in the meantime, there were people like, "Oh, this is I'm seeing Banjo Kazooie," and people like, "Oh, this is like Mario," and I was like, "Okay." Figure out what do I wanna do. So I remember very clearly, like, certain levels that I did, there's, like, levels that I've thrown away because I was like, I made it, and I was like, "This is it," and then I played a run around, I was like, "It doesn't feel quite right," because yeah, at first I was like, "Let's just make Mario Odyssey, like, big open area where you can explore, have fun." And I was like, "Yeah, but I do like the linear ideas because, like, I do like the how do you say, the story elements of, like, certain, like, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, because they're back and forth. You don't really get that with Mario, and I was like, "Maybe the open doesn't fit right in." So I was trying to figure things out, so it took a while to, like, nail down what I was doing because I didn't also want to at the time, I didn't just want to point and be like, okay, a lot of people saying Banjo Kazooie, let's just do Banjo Kazooie. I didn't want to fully do that, even though I know it could have worked because there hasn't been a Banjo Kazooie in a good while.
Mhm.
I was like,
Mhm.
ukulele exists, of course, yes,
Yeah.
but I was like, I still want to like, don't want to take the easy way out, and even if I ended up on that route in the end, fine. But I want to like get there. What do you say? Naturally, where it feels right. So I think um, at a certain point, I was like, okay, it is a hub area, sort of like Banjo Kazooie,
Mhm.
but there's linear levels, and they're more like Mario 3D World,
Mm.
like elements of Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank with a little story. So I can have certain story bits. Certain levels can be gameplay oriented, whereas like Mario 3D World, one or two mechanics that gets gradually more difficult, and then there can be levels that are a little bit more story. There can be story bits, a funny character. Go back to weird to say my roots because it's like Zoink, like it's their thing, but that is was a phase of my years as start of the career. And
Absolutely.
like, yeah, so a mixture of like Zoink days and like as a kid playing Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank. So I was like, okay, that was my mixture of things. And I was like, does it work? I don't know. We'll try it out.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, from what I've seen, certainly, I definitely think it looks like it's working very well. And I love the fact that as you kind of made that really nice, nuanced kind of distinction between the two different types of mascot platformers that we actually were getting when we all just put them together as mascot platformers. Mario is one of those. So is Banjo. So is Ratchet. So is Crash. We can name a dozen of them. But actually, they come into groups really, which are, and they often are split, as you mentioned as well, via the fact that you get duos and then solo characters. With Mario is obviously the sort of archetype. With your solo character, exploring vast open worlds that, or at least open worlds, they don't have to be vast necessarily, but just nice big sandboxes to play in, as you said, very gameplay orientated, and less about a narrative going on, is very Mario coded, very Nintendo coded, where you will be in a themed world, but there's no story taking place through level design or like that. You're not getting like a world building sense of like, something's just happened here, and I've literally arrived 5 minutes after it occurred. It's like, no, you're in the beach zone. Enjoy the beach zone. There's a volleyball over there you can bounce on. There's sand everywhere. There's still Goombas because we're still Mario, but other than that, yeah, that's it. And then, of course, you have on the other side the duos who then end up getting, more often than not, these worlds that are designed with the idea of an interactive nature between them, as whilst they are also talking with each other, because that's a great way to then have this discourse that is about the thing that they've just witnessed. Because there's no point in having a character on their own witness something other than what Mario does, where he literally just kind of reacts. He just, and then we because he's got no one to talk to. So at the end of the day, he's just going to go, whilst Jack and Daxter can go, oh my goodness, did you see that? Yeah, what the? We should go check that out. You can have that and it makes sense. And so having narratives there and that interactive nature is very much something that you can get in a bunch of other platformers that you didn't see. One or two, as do ride the balance a little bit. Spyro is probably closer to that because it's a solo character, because you've got oh no, I've forgotten the name of the dragonfly. I've forgotten.
Sorry, Dragonfly.
Sorry. Sparks. Oh,
there you go.
Yeah,
good.
There we go. Anyway, there is a duo technically, but they're not really having banter in that respect. They're not a Banjo-Kazooie, they're not a Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank. They very much are the dynamic duos in that respect. And so it's nice to hear that you're kind of bringing a lot of the different elements of platformers as well as this Zoink DNA into your game. And I love the fact it is that sort of paper tearaway. There's just something about that. There's infinite possibilities with that idea, with just folding paper and things like that.
I think it brings some sort of playfulness that is harder to get naturally in other games. Obviously you can have a lot of playfulness in those games, but for me it's easier to come up with weird ideas and just like, well, it's a paper cardboard world, that's fine, and just like throw it in.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're only limited by what you can dream up, as opposed to we're doing a Ratchet and Clank game, so they have to go visit certain planets. We can't really do a medieval planet necessarily. That seems a bit strange, unless we're going to do a lot of world building to explain why this one civilization is still medieval, whilst every other planet you've been to has been super futuristic with rockets and lasers and stuff like that and robots. Now, it demands quite a lot of like focused, kind of like, as you say, like kind of not wanting to break immersion, so whilst with something like PaperKlay and the foldable kind of craft like world, it's already kind of implying that it can be anything just by what the world is made of, which is really cool. I could talk forever about just sort of the little intricacies of the game itself, because I'm very excited, obviously, to get the chance to play it and like that. But one of the things that you did share recently was some of the people you've been able to collaborate with on the project, which is quite exciting, I think. For again, to kind of tap you back into what we were just talking about, we actually missed one, which is really unfortunate, which of course is Sly Cooper. As a huge fan of things like Rare's work, having Grant Kirkhope obviously come on to work on the soundtrack and kind of that. I can only imagine, as you say,
it's so surreal, because like at the beginning, at the beginning of the project, I wrote down 3, like, this would be really cool if this happened. One of them was like, well, get Grant Kirkhope to be some part of the game in some capacity.
Yeah.
And yeah,
To do the whole
happened.
to bring the sound and music to the game. That's
Yeah,
that's a big thing, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
just to
So,
have him show up as a voice maybe for a character would be lovely. But
yeah, at least something, some sort of like, I guess, some sort of seal of approval. Part of it was like, okay, well, I did pay him, so maybe I did pay with the seal of
I'm sure
approval.
he appreciated that. I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I did tell him because, like, here's the thing. We have a friend in common called Stephen Mellon, and he was like, "Well, Kevin, I'm friend with Grant." And I was like, "Well, show me to him." And I was like, "If you guys feel like it, like if you feel inspired, I'd love to talk, pay you, of course. But if you're not into it, I don't want to force it." And I didn't ask if they really felt it. They jumped on board. I was like, "Good enough, I'll take it." So they collaborated on a song and made like the main theme of the game, which I wouldn't, I definitely don't want it to sound like we were lost musically before, but we did struggle a little bit to find the right tone. We were on the right path and everything, but then after Steven and Grant made the song, we were like, okay, and they were like, hey, do you want to? I don't know the music lingo. There's a the stem files on them. I think it's called something along those lines. Whatever the pattern. Anyway, for those who listen who know music, don't laugh.
Help us out in the comments.
Okay, we kind of found the direction a little bit better after that song, and so we went over the songs that we had and just fine-tuned them, and I was like, okay, it added a new layer of like perfection. And there have come songs, obviously love the song that they did, love it. There come more songs now from Nate, who's doing the music for the game. I worked with him on Legs as well, so we known each other for like 5 years. And there are songs now that I'm like, I really really like these. These could be like up for me.
Yeah.
So it feels really good to have several songs that are like favorites.
That's
Feels really
wonderful,
good.
yeah. And to have it, as you say, from a veteran, someone you know obviously admired and stuff like that, but then also to have it coming from you know someone who you are then working with, who you're like I trusted you to to bring that same kind of not
Yeah.
again not to say they're not experiencing how that, but it's you know one has been a sort of a long-standing name in the industry.
People about him for a while. He's been working on it. People are aware about.
It's Rare's 40th anniversary this year, so it makes you think, when you suddenly go like that, it's crazy.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah. When you remember that, you're like, oh yeah, they've been around a while. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. And again, obviously we talked about Grant, and then I mentioned Sly Cooper as well because you've also got some cool people working on the voice side of things. The voice
Yeah, that's so crazy. Here on Discord, he has written to me well, we're gonna have a session again soon. But so yeah, Kevin Miller, who did the voice of Sly Cooper, is the main villain of PaperKlay. And the main villain is called Nox. So
so cool.
and think he was he found out about the project a good while ago, and then we started talking a little bit, and he was like, I'd love to like be a part, do something. And I was like, yeah, sure, cool. I was like stressed at this time because reasons, like accounts got hacked and this was money low, like it was not the perfect time. I was like, I hear you, Kevin. Wait, yes, cool. And he was like, oh, the main villain. I was like, yeah, I'm trying to figure it out because this guy, me, learning 3D still after 2 years in the game. I was trying to be like, okay, I have the concept for the main villain, but it's not in 3D. There's no guarantee that the 3D version will look like the concept.
Of course.
We'll see. We'll do what I can. And eventually, when I finished the character, I was like, okay, Now I know how he looks like. Now I can figure out what he's gonna sound like. And then I was like, okay, what is his tone? Like, how is he in relation to like the main duo? Like, what and what is his everything? I was trying to figure that out. I think it took like 5 months of us like talking here and there. Then eventually I was like, I think I'm ready. And I was like, I have like three villains at like different directions. And I think one of them was like a character, a very slow character from Teen Titans. Don't fully remember who it is. But he had a skull, I think, a mask. And then it was Death from Puss in Boots. And then I was like, here's a wild card. It was like Joker from Batman, or Mark Hamill doing the voice. And I was like, probably not going to go that route. But I was more in tone of like Death. And I was like, okay, I don't fully know how to write this character before I fully know what we're going to do with the voice. So we jumped in a session. I had a script, an idea for the intro, and he tried a different route, the three different versions. And when he did the Joker one, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was like, I like this. This is good because of the I fell for the dynamic and the how do you say the unreliable, how it can be in the same sentence very calm and then just flip a switch and scream
Yeah.
at the end. And I was like, ooh, okay, this is good. And then directly I was like, he needs a sidekick like that is scared of him. And okay, yeah. So everything started like clicking from that point. So it was like the third or fourth character that I casted or voice that I casted in the game because I felt like I need to nail down the important voices to figure out what their dynamics going to be, and the rest will fall into place. And yeah, that was. I still haven't, obviously, in the moment when Grant Kirkhope and Stephen Mellon delivered the song, I was like, "Yep, love this." On a high, that was amazing, and I had to keep it secret for like 3 months before I was on a showcase to announce something because I used that as leverage to get into these events. Be like, well, I got this guy here,
Yeah.
Grant,
Grant, come
uh,
here.
and that release window, and they're like, yeah. So that was cool. I was laughing, I was happy, and then the Sly Cooper, Kevin Miller. I was obviously excited, but it didn't fully click everything like happening. That these people are working on my game. It didn't click for me. I don't think it has fully yet. Um, but people tell me that it's cool, and I'm like, yeah, I know, I know. I don't think I've had time to like to stand and look at my game and be like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Um,
You're too
we'll
close
get.
to it right now. I think
Oh
that's
yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
am
it.
knee deep
Yeah.
in PaperKlay. Scary.
Exactly. Well, look, I'm glad we were able to talk about some of the, really, really cool kind of, things that have happened along the journey. But you have obviously alluded to a couple of times some of the, the tougher side of, this experience and this time in your life.
Yeah.
What can you sort of talk about regarding that sort of stuff? What was it exactly? Not exactly. What would you be happy to talk about? And you know, are these the sort of things that you would, I guess, warn others to look out for, or are these quite sort of particular, unique
Mm.
circumstances, that, unfortunately just befell you at this time?
I mean, in general, the ups and downs, or yes, the downs
Yeah,
of the project.
the downs, as it were, as much as, you
Yeah.
don't want as well, but at the same time, these things can be
Yeah.
really helpful
Uh,
for others as well.
I think this is very natural and normal thing to happen in general in life. The thing is, when you work at a studio with more people, if you're sick or if you're down, whatever, the ship can still keep rolling. The train keeps on going.
Yeah.
If you're solo and you're down, that can slow things down for you a bit. And especially like not saying that it's too different if you're a solo developer, because if you go through things in life, in my case, went through like a breakup and then my social media, not at the same time, everything, but like
No,
social
definitely.
media accounts got hacked and like life
Yeah.
happens that you need to deal with, and it takes up time from that you could spend on the game. And then in general, if you're like, oh, I'm not working out, I'm not taking care of my body, mental health, that also slows you down. So like, and then coming to a point where like spend time on actually going to the gym, going on walks, making sure that I hang out with friends, family, and whatever you want and need. I think those are things that like happen, and I think I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, but like I think 2024 was the year that I worked the least because I was um like the most stable because like I took care of myself the most, like worked out like crazy, hung out with friends. Put up a schedule of like I'm allowed to work Monday morning to Friday afternoon. How like living alone. You see where I live.
Yeah.
Like Monday morning to Friday afternoon, I can work as much as I want, as long as I go to the gym and eat rather healthy. And if friends want to hang out on a Wednesday evening, sure, I'll go hang out with them. If I'm alone, this is what I do. I work on my games and the freelance gigs that I got and everything.
Yeah.
And just making sure that I'm taking care of myself and progressing. And that is like the, how do you say, personal part, making sure that everything stays afloat and keeps going, so I can pay the voice actors, Nate, the composer, and so on, everybody on the project
Yeah.
that are part of the project. And then like the business side of things is like, okay, because what I said in the beginning, like publishers reached out, that didn't stop. It kept going. And there were two different publishers that I kept talking with from time to time. In the beginning was one publisher that I had like two meetings with, and then I was like, it doesn't feel right. Okay, let's move on. It's okay. And then I think 2 years later, I was very close to signing with a publisher this like past year, 2024. I think early summer, I started talking with a company, and then after the summer, that was like very we were like agreed on like amount of money and rev share and all these things what we're gonna do, and they were gonna uh pitch it to their board of directors and everything. And I was like, wait, with that, my gut feeling after a while now, it doesn't feel like we're still friends, like we can still talk and everything, support each other. It wasn't like a bad breakup that never happened, or like a relationship that never happened. But it was like, okay, I think I want to self-publish. And they're like, that's okay. We support you. So I think, like, how do you say this? Something that I've learned through the years is from my mistakes, is like, it's scary to take deals when you're hungry, like when you need the money. And I'm now in a luxurious position where there's enough money to keep going, to finish the project. I don't need to take external money to finish the game. Well, it doesn't hurt, but like I don't need to technically. And so I was like, okay. And I did some calculations. How much do I have to sell? How many units do I have to sell if I self-publish in order to earn the amount of money that I was gonna get there, and then give X amount of money away forever if I sign with the publisher. So I think if you're a developer and you're like, if you have the experience, like that was something that I also took into account. But like the things that a publisher was offering of like, oh, we can translate your game, we can get it working on consoles and all these things. And I was like, that, with all respect, with the amount of experience that I have, that is not something that will get me to go with you, because I've done that for several games, many years. So it was, the pros and cons was like, and I want to make sure that I don't sound ungrateful for the situation that I'm in, but it's like life happening, and then taking these bigger deals, getting money, signing away half game, whatever you want to do, which is normal these days. It was just feel like I'm just like rambling on now, but it's like looking at your situation and making sure that you don't take any deals when you're desperate, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really important point because I mean, as soon as you said that, I thought to myself, well, I think it's a phrase I've heard several times, at least my parents both used it, which was you don't go shopping when you're hungry.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you're going to just make bad decisions. You know, your
Yeah.
gut's telling you this because that's what you're craving, but that's not necessarily what you should be spending the money on to get because it's too costly for what you get, or it's not healthy for you. It's not
Yeah.
going to last, whatever reason it might be. And it's the same with what you're talking about there, where it is very much a case of this looks good right now, but that's only because it's what your mind's telling you, you're sort of
Yeah.
telling yourself is what you need, when actually it may not actually be best for you in the long term for
Yeah.
the all manner of different reasons it could be. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really valuable stuff for I think a lot of people, because I think I can only imagine there are lots of people in more work and all types of work, but
Yeah.
talking game development here, I think there'd be plenty of people who've probably fallen also, unfortunately, into those sort of situations. And
Yeah.
and that's not to say that these are traps being set by, vicious, evil publishers or anything like that. We're not trying to frame it that way. It's just simply that the publishers obviously trying to get a good deal for themselves as well. They want to.
Yeah. It's a business.
It's a business. People have got to make money in order to pay those who are making this business run. It's nice when a game breaks even, but actually, what you want it to do is make money. You don't want it just to finally get to the top of the glass. It's like, no, we actually
Yeah.
want to get extra from this,
Yeah.
so that we can all benefit from it and make more games and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's meant these two parties have to meet, and if what one is offering the other is not good, it's not because any one party's done anything wrong. It's just simply that this is not the time for this partnership to be formed. And
Yeah.
it sounds like your gut instinct, picked that up at the right time. Fortunately, it wasn't after you'd signed anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh God, no, what have I done? You were able to, to take a moment to sort of in all this other, commotion going on, personal stuff, as well as just working on a game, which in and of itself is, you can have an easy going life and still trying to just making a video game is incredibly hard work and stressful.
A lot of work.
Yeah, exactly. People don't get that when you're doing it all on your own, when you're trying to wear all those hats as best you can, and again, you've done the salient thing where you've tried on the music hat and realized like, no, that's not me. I'm not that guy.
I know my limits.
Yeah, and some of us are meant to. Some of us have that where we can kind of just turn our hand to anything, but most of us, we have our limits. And once you find them, you go, cool. I'll focus on things I can do, which sounds like is exactly what you've done. And I think that's to your credit, and I think it also is why PaperKlay is where it is now. Where you're talking about releasing it this year and things like that, as opposed to it still being, to be announced, or even still just a personal project to help you get better at 3D. It has become something through your own perseverance, even though it wasn't directly to make PaperKlay originally. It's a wonderful, interesting story.
Like it's to go a little bit back about the what was it? The gut feeling of like not going with the publisher. It was like as I was going through a breakup, the more I was going through that part, the more I was excited about having a publisher, because they were gonna take some weight off my shoulder and everything. And when I bounced back from the breakup, I was like, no, I can still do these things. And friends, they tell you eventually like, oh, you'll find someone when you least expect it. And like, yeah. And I think it's a similar thing with games. Like if you're trying to force to make, how do you say, dream game or build an IP, a franchise or whatever, like if you're forcing it, I guess it might not always work. Like I have more analogies, but it might not be suited here. But like,
but I think it's definitely a problem. I think that we're seeing throughout this industry. What you're talking about there, just the forcing of things into existence, whether it's making your dream IP or game or anything like that, or chasing a trend, which I think is the more common place where we're seeing that being applied. we're seeing the victims of it, unfortunately. Over the last however many 3 or 4 years, there's been an extortionate amount of layoffs and studios shuttering and things like that, and it speaks volumes to, unfortunately, just a whole lot of mismanagement, I believe, honestly. And it's tough because it's not as if, more often than not, it's not going to be one singular individual's decision within one of these companies, but often it's having those people having to listen to, the investors and things like that. The other entities, the suits that we talk about when we have to, and things like that, and their involvement, which has led to all manner of things over the last few years, and
which is very scary. But the chasing the trend things is like there are people that like have asked me to like, hey, you should make that game or blah blah blah, and I think it's come to a point where I'm like, I think where I found the most joy of making games is like I have my contract work, freelance, and income from my catalog that keeps selling. So I focus on, I do the contract works, I have fun with them, and then in this case, PaperKlay. That is just like I put my passion into it. It doesn't have to be molded into this is what is gonna sell. Like it is now more like this is something that I enjoy. This is an adventure I want to take you on, and I hope you enjoy this duo. That is where my mind is with PaperKlay right now. Will it be perfect? I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be a fun adventure for a weekend. Sounds like something else, but hopefully.
No, I think that sounds good. I think that sounds like the sort of pitches you probably were hearing about these sort of games back in the day as well, when they were doing Banjo Kazooies and stuff like that. I imagine they were just pitching like, "Hey, look, it's just this cool little duo that we think you're going to really enjoy hanging out with and going on adventures." Sometimes that's the pitch, and that's all you need to hear. I think that's nice, and as we've said already, it bodes well for maybe there being a resurgence in these sorts of games coming through.
I hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think the industry would do well. That it's evolved so much in the last few decades since they were one of the bigger genres that it'll be interesting to see where their space fits. But last year, if anything, was sort of the year of Metroidvanias in a crazy way. So you never know what's going to happen. Frankly, there's you don't know which genre is going to hit. We know which ones are being chased. It's the hero shooters, it's the extraction shooters, it's all these sorts of games. But the ones that actually pop off, like and really kind of like capture everyone's imaginations and stuff like that, you can't really tell anymore.
No, it's really hard, and it's like you need to keep track. Like you need to be on top of your game to like figure out what is trendy, what is happening. And I've seen certain trends come and people jump on it and go nuts, have fun.
Yeah.
But again, back to WhyKev, it's like, I'm making the games that I'm passionate about. I could go the route of like jumping on a trend, making a certain type of game, making what if it was a minimalistic version of that genre and try to capitalize on that. As of right now, I'm not desperate for that. I don't want to say too much. If PaperKlay flops, maybe I'll jump on the train, make a bunch of mini games everywhere. No, but like right now, it's like I'm passionate about PaperKlay, the 3D platformer. Let's go that route and have fun with it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that shines through. That is the ambition, at least.
Yeah, I think that's the best sort of future you can hope for a game like this as well. Is that you just hope it finds its audience, whoever they may be, new or old. Platformers again, I think are a special genre because so many of us grew up with them, and thus you've got adults who hold them fondly, but they are by almost their very nature, or at least how they were originally created, they are games. They are a genre aimed at children. And are so open and accessible in that respect, and yet also have almost boundless opportunity of like creativity, mechanics. There's so much to them, and I think that is why I like seeing older genres getting a look back in, because now we're at a time where the tech is better. People have got experience playing these games now. They've grown up. They've tried other things, and so you get this brilliant splicing of genres and mechanics and the things we're seeing nowadays. Just there's I can't unfortunately remember their name. I should try and look them up at some point. But there's a Japanese developer who just does a brilliant thing. Their last game was called Head. They're releasing
Yep.
yeah, I loved it because it just the idea of taking it one single mechanic and just pushing it to the absolute
Loving it.
limit. Oh, it's the best. It really is, because you think you've seen it all. And then you get to the next room and hey, we thought of something else this thing can do. And you're like, you haven't had to add a new mechanic or button or anything. It's just the same controls and I'm doing something completely different. And those
That's
sort of games.
inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that whatever genre it might be, that sort of level of creativity is always exciting. But I think platformers in particular really lend themselves to that. Throwing yourself about in environments. I mean, that's going to just drum up. Well, what happens if we turn off the gravity? What happens if we stick magnets on them? You look at It Takes Two, for example, and games like that. I mean, goodness me, that game is just a sort of play-by-play of, hey, this is what you can do in a platformer.
Joseph, Forrest, chill, please.
Yeah, leave something for the rest of us. Come on.
Yeah.
But
it's
cool. It's really cool to see these people, almost kind of putting their necks out to do this sort of stuff. You included, to make the games that are not considered by the mainstream as the popular choice.
No.
And hey, sometimes it actually makes sense not to do that, because you'll find people who have been waiting for that. They've waited patiently. They've gone back and enjoyed their remasters and things like that, or the occasional like, oh, we've ported it to the new console, so you can play it through again for the umpteenth time. Great.
Yep.
But what I really want is something new, and that's when a PaperKlay comes along and stuff like that.
Hope it finds the audience that really likes it. It's been weird to be having the support since the beginning. Like in the latest devlog that I posted on YouTube, like the amount of nice comments and everything, people writing privately to me and everything, I'm like, okay, this game needs to be good.
No, I mean, hey, look, I can appreciate definitely feeling a bit of pressure from the anticipation of others, absolutely. But I think also you'll find that, fingers crossed, touch wood, whatever other superstition you have, if something were to, if for it not to pan out as you would hope, you certainly wouldn't then get a slew of people being like, oh, my son's crying now. Well, it's that sort of stuff. I think the energy that you would receive are people just being like, thank you so much. Anyway, regardless, like I am thrilled that there's just more of this in the world, and there's something still important about that. And funny enough, as we probably sort of wind down a little bit towards the end here, like what sort of do you feel like PaperKlay is the sort of thing? Is this the sort of idea that now you've spent so much time with it and grown it so organically yourself, and kind of can feel those sort of milestone moments and things like that? Is this the sort of thing that you feel like you could then do a PaperKlay 2, Electric Boogaloo, or are we thinking maybe like, no, I'm actually going to go back to new game, new genre, new ideas, what's the sort of, I guess it's more about what do you want to do next as opposed to what's next for PaperKlay, really is actually the question in that respect.
So
to getting away from it to do something new, or actually, no, this is me now.
Yeah, that is a great question, and I'm an open book, and like things can change. I'll just throw it out there. Things can change. I've been thinking about, like, I'm an overthinker, and when I go on walks, I let my mind go free. So I've been thinking about like, how would the story pan out across multiple games, or the spin-offs? What could the spin-off be? And again, these are things that could, how do you say, never happen, just end up in a vault somewhere, which is Google Drive. And but it's like, okay, I have written out a outline of a story for a spin-off game, and I have an idea what a what a trilogy could be, and it doesn't mean that it will happen, but it could. It's like, okay, are there things that I should sprinkle in the first game that I could use in the future? So like these are things that I love thinking about. I'm so passionate about it. And I think honestly, from someone that have been very insecure about 3D, now that I've found something that I understand and feel comfortable in, and understanding color theory a lot more, thanks to my friend Patrick, uh, and other people as well. I'm like, okay, I kind of enjoy this, and so I I think I, I. So the thing is, usually I'm like, let's just make a game in 1.5 years, and we can extend it to 2 years because like it's scary to work on a project and be bored of it. You don't want that. Like the last stretch, you don't want to be bored of the project. Like I worked on PaperKlay for 3 years now. I am not bored of it. Quite the opposite. I'm super excited. So I don't want to promise anything, but I can say this: when PaperKlay is out, as I'm feeling right now, where it's like a few months left, I have ideas I want to play around with. So we'll see what happens. Because it's the thing, I have a lot of dumb ideas that I need to explore. And some of them will work, some of them won't. And I have, just like PaperKlay started with me wanting to like learn 3D better and all these things. I have things in the pipeline that I want to learn that technically could be used for another 3D game. Yes. So we'll see if that leads to a game that would fit well with a sequel, spin-off, or a totally different game. I have no idea. But if there's an audience that enjoy PaperKlay and I have ideas that I think would go work well for more, I'd I'd be down. Like I'd be happy if I turned out to be the garage version of Oddworld. It's like the same, at least like the same writers or guys that's been working for many, many, many years. I'm okay with being the garage version, the less cooler version of them.
What a pull. Yeah, no, absolutely. That is great. I love everything you've just said there. I love where you're just ending on just dropping Oddsworld like that. Fantastic. But also what you're saying just then about like your dumb ideas, it's like, the great thing is you're now in your own office where you spend 10 minutes hashing it out with yourself, doing all this, trying to come up with
Oh
the
yeah,
fun
yeah.
ideas. That's you now. You get to be your friend Klaus from back at Zoink, as it were. You've got your own Zoink
Yeah,
dumb
I
idea
do
office.
the same thing. I walk around trying to figure out the characters, and I do these things. And if I'm sick, I write like I was like sick, sneezing and everything. And I wrote a script. I'm like, this doesn't feel good. I'm sick. I don't want to think. So I'll strip it down to the tiniest version, and that is now in the game. I was like, yeah, that worked. So like, just
That's so
take it.
good.
I was like,
I love it. And the last thing, actually, it actually you ended on, I think, a brilliant point to sort of to finish this all up on in a great way. Unless you've got anything else you want to say, is that to never get bored of the thing you're making. I think that's such a crucial message for people who want to get into game dev, who are currently working in game dev, indie, AAA. Frankly, that's a
yeah,
lesson for everybody, which I think is so good. I try to, as best I can, help devs share their own experiences so that other developers can hopefully benefit from it. And
yeah,
this is the sort of thing that benefits everybody. You don't want to be bored on a project, regardless of how
mm,
much time and effort you poured into it. If you lose that flame for it in the first place, then it's you're probably not going to see it through. If you do see it through, the likelihood is that it's not going to end up being as good as it could have been if
yeah,
you'd seen it through with your heart full, as it were, and all the rest of it. But
yeah,
yeah, what a wonderful sort of message, I think, to finish on. I think that's really, really, really powerful.
yeah. I think in general, like having fun with your craft is like the best. And I know I'm definitely not a motivational speaker. I'd love to be, maybe, but I'm not. But like in general, like try to see things from the positive sides. I'm a very positive person in life, So like I walk outside, I smile, I'm happy, and I pour that into my passion, my craft, my games, and I like try to make sure that I do these things in life that brings me joy, and that makes sure is that I don't sit in front of the computer all the time. Out in nature. I have a camper van, and I
Fantastic.
force some of my friends out, and we make a fire and make some food and everything. Sleep in tents, whatever. Go on hikes. Like that makes me happy. I recently picked up the guitar. I play 30 minutes a day, maybe.
Yeah.
I have no singing voice, but I'm having fun with it.
Yeah.
I love reading. So all these things makes me happy, which in the end makes sure that I'm having fun with my games and everything. Sure, I was happy when I worked 10, 12 hours a day on video games. Sure. But it's nice with a balance. Like life is short. Just have fun and try to make the best of it. And hopefully, in our case, and those who listen, it's video games. Making video games is part of that fun part of life, I guess. Motivational
Absolutely.
speaker.
There we go. Yeah. Next career path after PaperKlay if needed. Definitely. No,
Yeah, I'm
that's
gonna
it.
go on the port.
No, thank you so much, Kevin. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much
This is
for
really fun.
yeah, I really
Honestly.
enjoyed this. Before we obviously sort of finish up here with the recording, is there anything else you'd like to mention or say, or anybody forgot to mention as well when we were talking earlier about people you've been working with, anything at all? And obviously, I will do all socials and stuff on the rollout, as it were, for you.
I'm letting people know that they can wishlist it on Steam. I keep forgetting to plug that, but yeah, the demo it's going to be part of the Steam Next Fest. I don't think I publicly said this, but Steam Next Fest, PaperKlay is going to be there with something new, or probably a hub, maybe an intro. I don't know. I was still figuring it out. It is a month away, which is scary. Hey,
Okay, we don't know what's going to be there, but we know it's going to be there.
something's going to be there.
Something's going to be there, people.
Something will be released. Hopefully it's good. So go check it out. But yeah, I want to shout out the team, I guess. So yeah, my best friend Grant Kirkhope, Stephen Mellon also made the song. All the voice actors. That's so crazy. I think there are 34 characters in the game, and I have voice actors for 33 of them. I still need to fix that.
Yeah, and they're not all just going, are they? They're really,
Yeah, the voice. Oh yeah, there's one that I haven't shown that's like sick. I'm like, this is gonna be a classic, or a fan favorite. No, but yeah, and shout out to Nate who's doing the music, the sound effects, Zana who's helped join to make character concepts and everything, and my friend Patrick for helping out 3 weeks early stages to pick colors, because that's crazy. Like we spent 30 minutes at a scene just changing the colors, nothing else, changing colors, and people are like, I want to spend money on that. So yeah, shout out to Patrick.
Shout out to Patrick. Well done, sir. You've done. I will say, from what I've seen, he knows his colors. I'll say that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He knows what he's doing. Yeah.
This has been fantastic, Kevin. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Kevin quickly again for chatting with me, and you of course for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and if you have any questions or feedback for us, leave it in the comments below. If you'd like to see more interviews like this or any of our other content, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, and if you'd like to see any of our written content, visit www.gamersocialclub.ca. Until next time, take care everyone.